Hey guys, and welcome back to Butcher True Crime with yours truly, Christian. So back in 2016, I was following a case on a college student who was accused of killing two people and attempting to kill a third. And this occurred in 2016, and it was all over the news networks, even became nationally aired and known. And then it kind of like fizzled out, and I was very curious as to what happened to it, because I was a psychology major in college, so I like to kind of figure out the intricate workings of people's minds and what leads them up to do certain things that they do. Now, Austin Harrouff was born December 21st, 1996 in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, to the parents of Mina, that was his mother, his father Wade, who was a dentist, and his younger sister Haley. Now, it's said that growing up, Austin was a really good kid. His parents often described him as the golden boy, and he never got in any trouble. He would suffer some depressive episodes as a teenager, but like most teenagers, that's pretty common. But nothing like so serious where he had to go seek medical attention or go to therapy or anything like that. Although in the end, he probably should have. So Austin would attend Riviera Beach High School. It's called Suncoast, and he would attend that high school. And it's said by his students and fellow students and classmates that he was pretty shy, pretty quiet, but like a generally nice kid and did pretty good in school. Well, at home, it was kind of a different story. His parents were known to be fighting like constantly and making it he became very anxious and very upset that this was occurring. And so, he found a love. He decided to go into sports, and he decided that that was such a good outlet for him. And he would become the star football defensive tackle for the Suncoast team. And he would also end up wrestling, which he was phenomenal at as well. So all indications were that this, everything's going pretty good for this kid, right? Not so much. When Austin was 15, his parents divorced. But they all stayed and lived in the same general area. And that is when Austin, by the time he was 17, would start drinking to a blackout stage and taking LSD and Molly and Adderall and weed and, things to not feel. That's what we do. So he would continue to do that, and then he would decide to attend FSU, Florida State University, where he would study biology and sports medicine. He was doing good in college. He became more like cocky and more like of a ham because the sports really brought out a different side of him. Like he started to get attention and get more popular and get girlfriends, and he had a nice physique and he worked out all the time. So in college, he was just a goofball, everybody pretty much said. And, oftentimes he would, visit on his summer break, and he'd go home and he would stay with his mother in Jupiter, and he would work for his father's dental office as a dental assistant. Now we're going to fast forward all the way up because everything pretty much goes status quo. He gets into health. He does videos about personal training and everything. And he goes and visits his girlfriend in Tampa, Florida. Now, he was there for a night, and then the next morning, he woke up and he goes, "There's demons, I'm hearing sounds, something's going on, there's demons, somebody's trying to get me." And his girlfriend was kind of bugged out. And so he would leave her and go all the way back home to Jupiter, where he would immediately flush all of his drugs down the toilet, and he would start getting into philosophy and into religion and into Christ. And even while he was working for his dad at the dental office, he would talk to the patients about religion, and he would play gospel music in the background. And his parents thought that this was kind of strange because this wasn't the Austin that they grew up with. But they said, hell, it's better than drugs and drinking. Our son is finding religion, right? Yeah. So it's said by his parents that he would develop paranoia and delusions, and would often sleep in his sister's room with his dog that he was going to bring in there for protection against all the evil spirits and demons that were surrounding him and that were out to get him. He would eventually move his bedroom into the garage because he felt that his house was possessed by demons. So that's exactly what he did. So let's go a couple weeks later. Austin is now not doing any drugs. He decided So Austin and his father and his father's girlfriend and one of his frat friends went to, not fat friends, frat friends, went to a gun show where Austin purchased a switchblade knife. And he was going to use that keep in his pocket to use as a defense against any demons, which I don't know how that really works because you can't stab something that's, not fucking there. So that's what he did. And then on the date of August 15th, 2016, that's when the day that everything went downhill. His parents had seen a very strange behavior in Austin and would often lock their doors because he became aggressive and kind of like losing his mind, going a little crazy. So Austin would wake up on August 15th, 2016, and he claimed that he heard that the dog spirits were telling him to put on a Michael Vick jersey, which he did. Now that sounds kind of weird because Austin was saying that the dog spirits were there to protect him. But if you know anything about Michael Vick, he's a disgraced football player who was accused of dog fighting and running a dog fighting enterprise. So that didn't sound very weird. And then he would go to the beach and he would run like an animal through the sand, just keep running like an animal. Now Austin was a Sagittarius. This is what makes it kind of weird. The sign of a Sagittarius is a centaur, which is a half person and half animal, and Austin loved the fact that that was his sign. So he would run like that, and then he would come home, and his father invited him and his friend to dinner, along with his girlfriend and his younger sister, to a Duffy's sports bar. So he went to Duffy's and everything started okay, but then Austin seemed to be getting like very antsy and impatient with the service and got very angry to a point where he got up and he stormed out of the Duffy's and started walking to his mother's house in Jupiter, which was right around the corner. Once he got to his mom's house, his mom was there, and she noticed he was acting very weird. He went right to his bedroom and he changed his shirt into a polo, went into the kitchen, poured a bowl of all cooking oil with Parmesan cheese, and just chugged the whole thing. I would think that Duffy's would be a better choice, but not Austin. It's also said that he may have taken mushrooms during this time, but we'll get back to that when we come back to the toxicology report in the end. So Austin would go back to the restaurant and his father would grab him and say, "Stop acting so strangely. What's wrong with you?" And Austin got so mad, he cocked his fist back and he was about to punch his dad. And then he just got up and he walked back out and he started walking down the street. Now it's roughly 9 o'clock at the time, and Austin was trying to follow the stars. So he was like walking down the street following the stars when he turned around and he saw like a white light. Now I don't know if it was the moon or one of like the lamp posts outside, but he saw a black figure, a black demon, which he named Daniel, trying to run after him. So Austin started running as fast as he can, approximately 3 to 4 miles down the road to a Tequesta neighborhood and community where his victims lived. So he was running actually to get help and get away from this apparition named Daniel, and he would see that there would be a light on in their garage. And the home was, the owners of the home were John Stevens and Michelle Michon, they had both just recently retired and were enjoying just the retired life. They've been together for 19 years, and it said this took place on a Monday, and it said a lot of times on Monday evenings that John and Michelle would go into the garage and they would pop open a couple beers, watch TV, talk to the neighbors that were passing by, often invite them in to have a drink or something. So they were very friendly, outgoing people. So Austin ran down that street and saw that their garage was open and saw a light and started running towards the garage. Now, Michelle was standing in the garage and he saw another white light, and then he saw black all around her, and he thought she was a witch. That Sunday before this attack, he had gone to a gun show with his father. He had gone and gotten a switchblade knife at a gun show that he went with his father and his, frat friends and stuff. And he would run towards the garage. He took out his knife. He saw Michelle, which he thought was a witch, and just started stabbing her repeatedly in her chest. And then he would grab stuff of opportunity like other knives or scissors or bottle openers, with the screw, and he would start stabbing her repeatedly. And he would go and he would see it was like some drinking or cleaning solvent, and he would chug the entire bottle of cleaning solvent. And then his neighbor, their neighbor, Jeff Fisher, heard screaming going on, and so did John Stevens, which was her husband. So he ran into the garage, and John just tried to help his wife, because Austin was on top of her, just stabbing and stabbing and stabbing her, and she's laying in this pool of blood. And he tries to grab Austin, and Austin turns around and just starts stabbing him too. Stabbing him in the face, stabbing him in the chest, stabbing him in the stomach, and eventually getting him on the ground and pinning him to the ground in a wrestling move so that John Stevens couldn't move. So Jeff Fisher, the neighbor, ran into the house, didn't see anybody, and then went into the garage where he saw Michelle laying down on the ground in a pool of blood. And he saw Austin, also known as the cannibal frat boy, attacking his neighbor, John Stevens, and eating his face. He was on top of John, biting chunks out of John's face and biting chunks out of John's chest. And Austin saw Jeff running up to him, and he goes, "You don't want any part of this." And Austin gets up and starts violently attacking him and stabbing him as well. Now, Jeff would get away as Austin turned his attention back onto John, who was laying on the ground. And he would run to the house, and Jeff phoned the police, and he could hardly breathe. Jeff ended up suffering like internal injuries, broken fingers, broken ribs, punctured lungs. I mean, he was on the way to dying himself. So he phoned the police, and the police ran and got there as fast as they could. 4 cops showed up and 1 canine. And when they got to the garage, they discovered Austin Harrouff on top of John, like I said, biting his face and spitting out chunks of skin and flesh, and then going to his chest and attacking his chest. And, the police took out their tasers and they tased him, didn't affect him. They started punching him and kicking him in the face, didn't affect him. Nothing was affecting him. It was almost like he was superhuman. And so they finally unleashed. They didn't want to shoot him because he was on top of John, and they were afraid that if they shot him, that it could possibly miss Austin and hit John, killing him, not knowing that John was already dead. So they unleashed a canine dog who would run and grab Austin by his arm and pull it back. And Austin, with his strength, just tore his arm out of the dog's mouth, tearing all of his arm up, and all of his skin and tendons were coming out, and he went right back to biting him and eating this guy. And then the dog went after him again, and he grabbed his arm again and pulled it out. Meanwhile, they're kicking him and they're punching him. Nothing was working, but the dog got him back enough where one of the officers was able to put a handcuff around him, and then they were eventually able to subdue him. And he kept saying to the police officers, kill me now, something's wrong. And so they ended up rushing Austin to the hospital. Meanwhile, they found out that both Michelle and John had succumbed to their injuries and were dead. And Jeff, the neighbor, was in the hospital trying to recover from his injuries. Now, while Austin was in the hospital, he was in a coma for 2 months. Since he was drinking those cleaning solvents, it apparently burned his esophagus, and it burned, and he had internal organ failure and internal burning, and he had missing teeth from being kicked and bleeding, and they didn't think he was going to survive, but he did. And he, about 2 months later, was released and arrested on the murders of both Michelle and Stevens, and a third attempt of murder on Jeff Fisher, the neighbor. This was wild, man. They would end up doing a toxicology report on Austin, like I said I was going to tell you about, and they came out showing that Austin had nothing in his system. He had very small traces of THC and nothing else. So everybody was just like, what the hell? What would cause somebody to snap and turn into this vicious animal? And so Austin was arrested. He's been sitting on trial for years now. It's been this was in 2016. It's now 2022, and the case still has not been solved, or still has not. Well, I mean, it's been solved, but they haven't formally charged him with anything yet, because 2 therapists would come out saying that Austin was mentally insane, but the third one said that he did not fit those criteria. So the arraignments and the courts were all postponed, and then COVID happened. And now, while after the therapist or psychologist like interviewed Austin and found out, that 2 of them said he was insane, some said he wasn't. They said he had a schizophrenic episode, a paranoid moment. He also suffered from werewolf syndrome, where he thought he was half animal. I'm gonna read to you guys some of the Google searches that Austin had prior to the days leading up to this attack. He was Googling, "Must I sleep? Why am I going crazy? What's wrong with me? Why am I hearing voices? Can we really do more than we think? How do I know if I'm going crazy? Who is Satan actually? What is white magic?" So he was like, there was telltale signs in his searching of things that were mentally not right with Austin at the time. So it was weird. I kind of like felt bad for him in the end, because I watched a episode of Dr. Phil, and I want you all, we're gonna post the link in here, I want you all to go watch that episode of Dr. Phil, because part of me feels so bad, and part of me really truly believes that he doesn't remember doing any of these things. But then he would start crying in this interview, and to me the tears were so fake. It was like crocodile tears, and it's just like, it was so hard to take him seriously. Now this could also be signs of somebody that is severely mentally deranged or having hallucinations or psychotic disorder, but I just found it totally strange. So the end result is, he's now on trial, and they're set to retry this case November 28th of this year to finally get the final outcome and see if he's going to be sentenced to life or if he's going to be released on insanity. I don't know, guys, but I'm here asking you all to tell me what you think of this case, and if you think he was actually insane at the time, or if you feel that he actually really knew what he was doing. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please follow us on butchered_true crime. We'll list it down there. We also have TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube. Again, butchered_true crime. I'd love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear what your thoughts about this case. And I can't wait. In just a few weeks, we're going to find out what actually happens with Austin Harrouff. So maybe I'll do a follow-up video telling you what the end result and what he was charged with. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we will see you next time on Butchered True Crime.